Hello everyone, welcome to the channel of Political Science Tutorials. In this video, we are going to discuss about types of feminism. In part 1, we have discussed about what is feminism, roots of feminism and 4 waves of feminism. Please watch the part 1 to understand this part clearly, as this part is the continuation of the first part. In the concluding portion of the first part, it has already been discussed that different theorists of feminism explain different causes of female exploitation by males and suggested different methods and movements to end this exploitation. To all feminist theorists, gender inequality is the main issue, and their main aim is to end this gender discrimination. It is true that in most of the societies, women of similar education, class background, religion, racial category and ethnic group having a lesser social status and fewer advantages than men. Different feminists have different perspective. For these theories have been categorized mainly in 4 types. And these main types are liberal feminism, Marxist feminism, socialist feminism and radical feminism. Except these 4 types, there are another types of feminism like black feminism, cultural feminism, psychoanalytical feminism, ecofeminism, etc. But in this video, we will discuss about these main 4 types of feminism and their perspectives. In part 1, we have discussed about the roots of feminism, and we have discussed that the root of modern feminism lies in the theory of liberalism. The liberal theory is based on the, we know, principle of independence, equality of opportunity, individualism, etc. But these principles were not applicable for women in the new liberal states. So, female liberal theorists and activists started to theorize the ideology of feminism and led movement to achieve their rights. Their focus was on equality. Their demand as the application of liberal principles and practices of individual freedom and rights into the lives of women. Women were not included as voters, as liberal feminists demanded for the rights and liberties enjoyed by men, and in particular the right to vote. Their demand of right to equality and justice was within the framework of the liberal state. They theorized equality, freedom and justice in the context of liberal philosophy. Only here the point was the exclusion of women, and for this reason they pointed out that these concepts, means concept of equality, freedom and justice, are inadequate until the gender dimension is taken into account. Liberal principles should include the same liberal rights for women. The first modern text of feminism is usually taken to be Mary Wollstonecraft's The Vindication of the Rights of Women, which was published in the year 1792. Wollstonecraft's publication dedicated an entire chapter in response to Rousseau's corroboration of paternalistic notions on the exclusion of women, as Rousseau portrayed women as silly and frivolous creatures born to be subordinate to men. J.S. Mill, in his book Subjection of Women, argued that women should have the similar rights related to property and citizenship as their male counterpart have. The first wave of feminist movement was only suffragist movement, mainly suffragist movement. Second wave of feminism started in 1960s. Though radical feminism was influential in this stage, still side by side liberal component of feminism was working. Betty Friedan, a liberal feminist who wrote The Feminine Mystic, which was published in the year 1963, marked the fresh start after a long gap in feminist movement and which was prevalent in 1960s. In 1966, Betty Friedan became the first leader of the National Organization of Women, NOW now, which was developed into a powerful pressure group and the largest women's organization in the world. Here a quote by Schwarzman can be mentioned. According to Schwarzman, the ideas and concepts of liberalism have been used in feminist struggles for liberation throughout recent history, from the time of the women's suffrage movement to the more recent battles over abortion. Women have formulated their demands in terms of equality, autonomy and individual rights. So, in the terms of individual rights, autonomy and equality, the liberal feminism is still important in feminist thought. Now, let us try to understand the main features of the liberal feminism. Liberal feminism is essentially reformist. It seeks to open up public life to equal competition between women and men, rather than to challenge what many feminists see as the patriarchal structure of society itself. Liberal feminists challenge their systematic and historical exclusion from the public space, not patriarchy. The notion of rights is central in liberal feminism. According to Jagger, in the 18th century, they argued that women as well as men have natural rights. In the 19th century, they employed utilitarian arguments in favor of equal rights for women under the law. And in the 20th century, with the development of the liberal theory of the welfare state, liberal feminists demand that the state should actively pursue a variety of social reforms in order to ensure equal opportunities for women. So, it can be said that liberal feminists' main focus was on the right of women, and they have not challenged the patriarchy as a system. In general, they were not also interested in abolishing the distinction between public and private spheres. We have seen that in the second wave feminism, when we are discussing about second wave feminism, the system of patriarchy and public-private dichotomy was prominent issues. Liberal feminists generally do not wish to abolish the distinction between the public and private spheres of life. Reform is necessary, they argue, but only to ensure the establishment of equal rights in the public sphere. The right to education, the right to income, the right to vote. The domain of family for them is not political. In the latter stage, radical feminists became critical and they stressed on power structured relationship in family, which they viewed as also political. Betty Friedan is considered as an important liberal feminist of second wave feminism. Her book, The Feminine Mystic, which was published in the year 1963, helped to revive the theory of feminism strongly. Another book of Betty Friedan was published in the year 1983, titled The Second Stage. Betty Friedan drew attention to the danger that the pursuit of personhood might encourage women to deny the importance of children, the home and the family. And Friedan's emphasis upon the continuing and central importance of the family in women's life has been criticized by more radical feminists as contributing to a mystic of motherhood. The critic of liberal feminism viewed that liberal feminists emphasized on equal rights and opportunities for men and women. But only this demand cannot fulfill the condition of emancipation of all women. They ignored the issues like social class and race. Critics also added that liberal feminism may therefore reflect the interests of white middle class women in developed societies, but fail to address the problems of working class women, black women, and women in the developing world. In brief, it can be said that liberal feminists have usually assumed that men and women have basically different natures and inclinations. They also accepted that women's leaning towards family and domestic life is influenced by natural impulses, and so it reflects their willing choice only. Now let us try to understand the viewpoint of Marxist feminists. As liberal feminism is based on liberal philosophy, Marxist feminism is based on the tenets of Marxist literature. In this regard, a quote by Tong can be mentioned. According to Tong, just as the liberal concept of human nature is present in liberal feminist thought, the Marxist concept of human nature is present in Marxist feminist thought. In Marxist theory, concept of labor plays an important role. According to Marxist feminists, labor is divided in two parts, productive labor and reproductive labor. What is productive labor? Productive labor refers the labor which results in monetary value in the form of paid wage. And what is reproductive labor? Reproductive labor is related with the private sphere, where people work for themselves without receiving any wage. Under capitalism, Marxists claim women are oppressed primarily because their oppression benefits capital. We know that the notion of class and class consciousness in terms of women being a class, that is sex class, is at the core of Marxist feminist thought. Friedrich Engels developed his arguments about the position of women in society in his book The Origins of the Family, Private Property and the State, which was published in the year 1884. Engels suggested that the position of women in society had fundamentally changed with the development of capitalism and the institution of private property. He also added that in pre-capitalist societies, family life had been communistic and mother right was prevalent. Female line was considered in the inheritance of property, and social position was also widely observed through the female line. But as society tended towards capitalist system, women were excluded from the productive labor and men are assigned to that. It leads the male to take control over both the public and private spheres. Established domestic domain was fractured by the production process of industrialization and resulted in the public and private domains of lives, wherein the former mostly associated with men is responsible for paid work, whereas the latter or private confined to household non-paid work is confined to women. In addition, female was not paid for her domestic work by her male relatives, as patriarchy ordains this as normal and natural domain of women. According to Marxist feminists, a man sells his labor in market. So, He is paid with wage, but women are associated with the reproductive labor such as cooking, washing, giving birth to child and rearing them. They don't receive any kind of monetary benefit in this labor as this is thought to be natural. These domestic labors are thus unrecognized in the capitalist system. Thus, the material basis of patriarchy can be placed in the division of labor thesis, which is present in both capitalism and patriarchy. Marxist feminists agree that the confinement of women to a domestic sphere of housework and motherhood serves the economic interests of capitalism. In bearing and rearing children, women are producing labor power for the next generation and thus guaranteeing future production. Similarly, in their role as housewives, women relieve men of the burden of housework and child rearing, allowing them to concentrate their time and energy upon paid and productive employment. In that sense, the sexual division of labor between men who undertake wage labor in factories or offices and women who carry out unwaged domestic work promotes economic efficiency. So, according to Marxist feminists, women are oppressed not by men but by the institution of private property and by capitalism. So, they suggest that women's emancipation will be a byproduct of a social revolution in which capitalism is overthrown and replaced by socialism. Now we will discuss about third type of feminism, and that is socialist feminism. Here one thing should be mentioned, that some thinkers use Marxist and socialist feminism in same sense, because socialist feminists also links women's oppression to class society and their critique draws from the Marxist categories of analysis. But there is a basic difference, that socialist feminists are critical of gender blindness of Marxist feminists, and socialist feminists include gender difference in their analysis. Socialist feminists argue that the relationship between the sexes is rooted in the social and economic structure itself, and nothing sort of profound social change, some would say a social revolution, can offer women the prospect of genuine emancipation. Here they differ from Marxist feminists. According to Marxist feminists, women seeking liberation should recognize that the class war is more important than the idea of sex war. But socialist feminists have found it increasingly difficult to accept the primacy of class politics over sexual politics. For socialist feminists, sexual oppression is every bit as important as class exploitation. They recognized the interplay of economic, social, political and cultural forces in society rather than the primacy of material or economic factors. They pointed out that women's domestic work is very much crucial for capitalism to survive. In this context, both patriarchy and capitalism become mutually beneficial to each other. They put it in this way. First, it gave patriarchy a material base in men's control over women's labor power. Second, it revealed a vivid parallel between the private sphere, where patriarchy was still ensconced, and the public sphere, where capital called the shots. In the public sphere, men labored at production, and in the private sphere, women labored at reproduction. And finally, it showed how essential patriarchy was to capitalism. Most capitalist institutions produced only things, but the quintessential patriarchal institution the family produced the men who produced things thanks to the labor of women. So, here the reproductive labor of women work as a strong base for the perpetuation of capitalist form of economy. And for this reason, socialist feminists rejected the primacy of class politics over sexual politics. Rather, they viewed and addressed the issue of body, sexuality, reproductive rights, etc. at the same time with the economic issues. Regarding the distinction between the Marxist and socialist feminism, a quote by Tong, here I will read. Tong outlines that whereas socialist feminists believe that gender and class play an approximately equal role in any explanation of women's oppression, Marxist feminists believe that class ultimately better accounts for women's status and functions. So, here issue among them, Marxist and socialist feminists, is whether class or sex is at the core of differentiating men and women. Here one thing is clear that Marxist feminists stressed on the class division of capitalist society to analyze the inferior position of women and suggested the revolutionary change in economic infrastructure. Whether socialist feminists stressed upon social revolution all along with drastic change in economic infrastructure and also addresses the issue of body, sexuality, reproductive rights, etc. Now we will discuss about fourth type of feminism, and that is radical feminism. Liberal, Marxist and socialist ideas had already been adapted to throw light upon the position of women in society. We have already discussed, but neither acknowledged that gender is the most fundamental of all social divisions. In radical feminism, gender differences in society were regarded for the first time as important in themselves, needing to be understood in their own terms. In first part, we have already discussed about Simone de Beauvoir, who is widely known for her book The Second Sex, which was published in the year 1949, and the book had a massive influence on the second wave of feminist movement. Her concept of gender politics was later developed by radical feminists. Radical feminists defined gender difference in their own term, and it was the most important thing to them. De Beauvoir insisted that women's position was determined by social and not natural factors, and developed a complex critique of patriarchal culture, and she promoted the concept that he is the absolute and she is the other. And another concept which you have already mentioned in first part, that one is not born but become women. In later stage, writer like Kate Millett, Shulamit Firestone developed a systematic theory of sexual oppression in radical feminism. And the branch of radical feminism clearly stood apart from established liberal and Marxist socialist traditions. We know that feminist ideology started from the principle of individualism, which is one of the main principles of liberalism. But radical feminists pointed out that the limitations of individualism as the basis for gender politics. First, there is an established structural character of patriarchy in society, which cannot be recognized from the perspective of individualism. Here, women are subordinated not as individuals, but as a sex that is subject to systematic and pervasive oppression. Secondly, individualism stressed upon personhood, and this stress may make it more difficult for women to think and act collectively on the basis of their common gender identity, their sisterhood. For the emancipation of women, collective identity of sisterhood is more important than personhood. And third point is, as liberalism viewed human beings as individuals, so it ignored the gender and other social identities. The radical feminist activist group Red Stockings was founded in 1969 by Shulamit Firestone and Ellen Willis. As per Red Stockings manifesto, male supremacy is the oldest, most basic form of domination. All other forms of exploitation and oppression, racism, capitalism, imperialism, etc., are extensions of male supremacy. In 1960s, there was this famous slogan of "the personal is political," and it resonated with the ideas of radical feminism. Feminist and writer Carol Hannis' essay titled "The Personal is Political" appeared in the anthology Notes from the Second Year Women's Liberation in the year 1970. What this slogan means, the personal is political. According to radical feminists, male power is exercised and reinforced through personal institutions like family, as child rearing, housework, love, marriage, and all kinds of sexual practices. And these practices extended up to the domain of politics. The patriarchal structure of society and the sexual division of labor between public man and private woman considered a natural and inevitable. This patriarchal structure has a strong root in the mindset of existing society. This has been taken for granted that women are born to be housewives and mothers, and this is their fate, and rebellion against this fate is both pointless and wrong. The process of validating this system takes place largely not only within the family, patriarchy's chief institution, but it is also evident in literature, art, public life, and the economy. Kate Millett proposed that patriarchy should be challenged through a process of consciousness raising, an idea influenced by the Black Power movement of the 1960s and early 1970s. What means the concept of consciousness raising? It means to understand the root of the source of exploitation and think widely and reasonably how to hit the root of exploitation with thinking differently, transgressing the existing beliefs. Now, in brief, we can say that liberal feminism works within the structure of mainstream society to integrate women into it and make it more responsive to individual women's rights, but does not directly challenge the system itself or the ideology behind women's oppression. The suffragist movement is an example. Marxist feminists believe that class ultimately better accounts for women's status and functions, and suggests that women's emancipation will be a byproduct of a social revolution in which capitalism is overthrown and replaced by socialism. Socialist feminists believe that gender and class play an approximately equal role in any explanation of women's oppression, and stressed upon social revolution along with drastic change in economic infrastructure, and also addresses the issue of body, sexuality, reproductive rights, etc. Radical feminists seeking to understand the roots of women's subordination, and views patriarchy and sexism as the most elemental factor in women's oppression. It questions the very system and ideology behind women's subjugation. They provided the major theoretical understanding that has served as the basis for the inspiration and analysis guiding women's movements around the world. After this discussion about types of feminism, now it's time to conclude the topic. In conclusion, we can say that various feminists have outlined different outlooks, either locating patriarchy at the center of the oppression, or some have viewed the industrial capitalistic society as women's prime opponent and enemy. But the soul of feminist politics is the commitment to ending the exploitation of women in society at large. Though their approaches are different, finally they merge with each other in their struggle towards women's liberation, gender equality, and the advancement of women. Their main aim is to end domination and coercion, because any relationship cannot be healthy which is based on domination and coercion. Hope the discussed points about types of feminism are clear to you. We'll come back with new video with new topic. Thanks for watching.